bring in William Lawrence. He's a professor of political science at American University and joins us now from Washington, D.C. Mr. Lawrence, always a pleasure seeing you. First, your response to Russia's decisions to stop diplomatic engagement with NATO.
Well, Russia's escalating rather than keeping things at the level they are. As you know, these types of spying spats have a long history going back to the Cold War. And the relations have been deteriorating since 2014 in the Ukraine annexation of Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine. And then in 2018, of course, you had that spy incident in the UK and something like 150 Russians expelled. And this is a continuation of that same iteration, except what usually happens is you don't enclose entire embassies or entire missions. You just expel the same number. So if 8 Russians and 2 vacant positions are suspended for a total of 10, then 10 NATO officials could get expelled from Moscow or something else. But the fact that Russia is escalating by shutting down entire missions and cutting off relations means that Russia's choosing the escalatory approach rather than the de-escalatory approach. And that's a harbinger for some possibly bad things to come and more confrontations with NATO in a variety of theaters.
Yeah, so this escalation is purely diplomatic so far, but do you think it's something NATO should be seriously concerned about? I mean, do you expect military moves to follow?
Well, there's always, fraught military encounters like between Turkey, a NATO member, and Russia in Syria. I think it was in 2017. There's always activity in eastern Russia and the Alaskan border. And there's confrontations everywhere. Even in Libya, there's been some confrontations between the Wagner forces and French and British troops over the years, or special forces. And then everything de-escalates. I think the main locus right now is the Black Sea, the whole Ukraine area, and the other Baltic states. And there's been maneuvers of late on both sides. There's been escalations on both sides. So there's a risk. I don't think Russia wants a full-blown war with the West. It believes it scores some propaganda points in Europe and elsewhere by playing the victim of NATO aggression, because these are NATO-aligned countries right up to the Russia border. So they have, in that sense, maybe a grievance. The problem is that Russia isn't the white knight here, and they heavily meddle in internal affairs in the Eastern European states, as they do in the Western European states. So really nobody has clean hands in this affair, and there is a higher risk now of military confrontation, no question.
Meanwhile, both Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and NATO seem to be saying the same thing, that the other is uninterested in dialogue. Where do you see this spat going?
I think there's an escalatory move, and I don't see any de-escalation going on right now. I think one of the main areas of cooperation was in Afghanistan, where Russia was helping with the NATO mission in a number of ways, and in the humanitarian mission. So the NATO withdrawal from Afghanistan takes one potential cooperative area off the books. We have concerns about Eastern Med escalation rather than cooperation. Pretty much everywhere you look now, there isn't much chance of cooperation. Therefore, the escalatory pressures can escalate into these escalatory moves. For the medium term now, I'm mostly concerned about the Baltics, about Ukraine, that whole area. As you may remember, earlier this year, we had an escalation of tens of thousands of Russian troops along the Ukrainian border. It wasn't clear what they were going to do because they had already taken over the parts of Ukraine where there was a positive view of them, so they would have had to have been invading parts of Ukraine where they are not well viewed, which would have been perhaps the kind of debacle that Russia left in Afghanistan, like the one that they left, like the U.S. just left in Afghanistan. So, I don't see a Russian appetite for war. Europe is a major gas client for them. There's other, points of contention. But I do believe that things right now are going to get worse before they get better. And the main concern is tripping into a war that nobody wants.
Most definitely. Professor Lawrence, appreciate your time. As always, thank you.